Welcome to Jurassic World.
Welcome to Jurassic World Minute, where we discuss Jurassic World 1 minute at a time. Where'd you learn how to shoot like that? I'm Brad.
I'm Dave.
And on this episode we're discussing minute 83 of Jurassic World. Before we get that, David, heading over to the Internet Movie Firearms Database. I'll say that slow because I'll stuff it up. Scrolling down the list of Jurassic World firearms here, seeing the film, we've got the custom tranquilizer rifle that we see used prominently in this film. There was a behind-the-scenes video with Jurassic World Property Master, not even going to try and pronounce that name either, showing off the custom-made tranquilizers for the film. One-of-a-kind weapons made for this film because, small fact, and we've seen tranquilizer rifles in the franchise before, they only fire one dart at a time. They're not semi-automatic. So they made these fire and tranquilizer guns running off nitrogen or CO2 to be fully automatic or semi-automatic. So when they pull that trigger, you see the receiver pulling back.
Oh, nice.
And that would mean all the darts we see blurring out the end of it are all CG, of course. So a bit of a write-up here. We've got a few of the scenes, mainly this minute we're going to talk about, and the next one where they're used with InGen security and InGen staff taking down the flying attackers on Main Street. You'd have to, I'm pretty sure if you head over to YouTube you'll be able to find the video of the Jurassic prop maker or property master going through describing the weapon. I do remember watching it before. I didn't watch it ahead of this minute, so might have to do that for the next minute. Yeah, powered by a nitrogen canister mounted in the stock, so yeah. Good bit of behind the scenes stuff for the weapons used in Jurassic World.
You look tense, Claire.
Maybe you should just focus on the controls.
The key to a happy life is to accept you are never actually in control.
Bird!
Minute 83 of Jurassic World opens with the Mosasaur falling back into the water and ends with Claire murdering a Dimorphodon. As we ended minute 2, well, it ended with the death of Zara. Hopefully she died of drowning quickly once that Mosasaur went underwater. We cut back to Main Street as the boys look on in shock at what they've just seen, and Zach just grabs Zach Gray's arm and says, "Inside now." And we cut to Owen and Claire and a heap of park staff running onto the promenade beside the Pteranodon IMAX theatre, which is ironic that they're here shooting Pteranodons with these darts in another building we won't see again until Fallen Kingdom, half destroyed. But they form a line in front of the IMAX theatre and start opening fire on the flying reptiles. We get that dart noise as the guns fire. Claire does something strange. She climbs up on an overturned food cart just to get a higher look over the fleeing tourists running around trying to see the boys, putting herself at a very convenient biting height or convenient plucking height by a Pteranodon. I wonder if it's just because Owen's, air quotes, laying down cover fire for her and they're all shooting anything in sight.
Yeah, that could be it.
Or she just doesn't think. Because, of course, this is all CG animals flying around here, so she might forget what's actually being projected on screen. But these darts seem to be acting very fast too. As soon as they're hitting animals, those animals are falling straight out of the sky and hitting the ground. We see animals start to fall all over the place. That's when we cut to Zach and Gray running past Margaritaville. Zach yells, "Aunt Claire." So I'm guessing they can see her on top of the cart. She just can't see them. Because I don't know why they just run on the main street calling her name when they wouldn't even know where she is.
Well, it could also be that they're like just kind of blending in with the crowd, and she can't see them, but they can see her because she's not blending in with the crowd, you know?
Yeah. Plus, they just watched Zara die too, so they might be traumatized a bit and just yelling her name. But we cut back to Owen as he slowly lowers his rifle and looks weirded out by something. And here, if you look real carefully, you can see the marlin on his back. You can see the glued seams on it, which means he's carrying the resin version here in all these scenes where it's on his back. But then we see what he's looking at, and the boys are running, and there's a Pteranodon seems to be hovering in the sky behind them. Which this is my second worst hated, disliked shot in this film. For those keeping score, we haven't got to the first one yet. It's later on during the Main Street fight, but it's just weird how Owen goes toward him, but Dimorphodon swoops in behind him and knocks him to the ground. Not going for the neck or anything, just I'll knock you to the ground first before I start trying to eat you. As the boys run, we get this seemingly puppet of a Pteranodon just floating behind them on strings. Its wing knocks over a cold drinks cart with its delicate membrane wing, and then goes to ground, lands on the pavement beak first, and begins to slide along the ground. At the same time, the boys have tripped over and are scrambling to a wall to get clear, but the Pteranodon continues to slide. And its beak inches forward and just stops short of impaling Gray. I don't know what I don't like it. Every other animal we've seen hits the ground and like is completely not rigid. It's knocked out, so it flops. It hits the ground and rolls, and then comes to a stop. I don't know if someone shot this or if it's just coming in for a bombing run and just hits the ground and stops. Why its neck so stiff that its beak can still point forward and risk piercing the chest of one of the boys like we've seen earlier in the helicopter.
I mean, that does bring up a good point, is that I think what happens is that it got shot with a tranquilizer dart, but it should have just went limp. And the head shouldn't be having any kind of reaction here that keeps it pointed straight up and forward instead of just kind of dragging along the ground.
Yeah, I don't know what they were going for here. I really don't.
I mean, I think they were kind of going for suspense, but it's not very well done.
No, you could have the Pteranodon swooping behind them and fly into the back of them, and them going to the ground without seeing it and not knowing if it's on the ground on top of them, now eating them or getting ready to carry them away, or whether it's been darted. And then you get that reveal that it's just laying across them, knocked out, and they've got to push it off. But we cut back to Owen fighting Dimorphodon. He rolls over onto his back and pushes the animal up just out of biting distance. And Dave, you mentioned a couple of minutes ago when we were at the aviary how ugly and how much you hate these animals, and I have to agree. It's a freak.
I think that what caused it to knock him over is, I mean, sure, it's light, but it's also being hit with a carbon fiber chair, basically, like a small one, but still.
Yeah. And there's a lot of just Owen holding the Dimorphodon's head back out of biting distance. Seemingly the two are locked in a mortal fight to the death, with no one being able to get the upper hand until Claire steps in. As Owen's holding the animal up, Claire picks up the tranquilizer rifle that Owen had and dropped to the ground and drives the butt of it into the animal's head, and the animal rolls off her with a whimper. Which I do love, that little reaction of the animal as it's hitting the head. It sort of whimpers, much like you would if a dog. Although I don't want to think about hitting the dog.
I think they use a dog cry for the sound effect too, which makes it all the worse, because I mean, you feel sorry for it. Because I mean, it's almost like we've been evolved or conditioned to associate the whimper of a dog with pitiful, sad things, like, oh,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah. And it's only doing what it thinks it needs to do. It's only eating, really. But once it rolls off Owen, and before it can get up, Claire unloads 4 darts into it, which, as the minute ends, that animal's dead now. That's overdosed.
Yeah, I was gonna say that thing got OD'd big time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to talk more about tranquilizer dosages when we get to Fallen Kingdom, with the difference between people getting a dose and an animal getting a dose. But it makes you wonder what these dart guns were set up to fire. If they're for larger animals, and these little animals are definitely getting more dose than what they should, which is weird. And we'll get back to it later in the film where we get returned to Main Street and all these animals are gone. But that's the end of the minute. Anything else on that before we get into the novel comparisons?
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right. Again, much as same as what we got in the film. Claire picks up the tranq gun that Owen dropped and swings it like a bat, hitting the Dimorphodon in the head before firing point blank at the chest.
I always thought that she kicked it.
Well, yeah, it happens very quickly. Owen's just sitting there holding the animal up, and all of a sudden we get the butt the gun come in and knock it off. Mm-hmm. Not a lot to discuss this minute. Security seemingly trying to get the upper hand on these animals. At least now we're on the offensive. Where before it's just been more running and screaming. But I think that's it for minute 83. Dave, how about we get out of today?
All right, sounds good.